Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I absolutely loved your book, Too Good to Be Real. So, this conversation also feels too good to be real, but I'm glad that this is. And so, let's first begin with maybe if you could tell us a little about you, because most of my following and followers are from India. And we would love to know a little bit more about you. What do you do? And maybe then also you can tell us a little about your book.
Sure. So my name is Melonie Johnson, and I live in the Chicago area. So Midwest, pretty much lived in the Midwest most of my life. And I started out as an English and theater teacher. So I always loved literature, loved to read. I taught high school, which is secondary school here in the States,
Right.
for a while. And then became a mom, so I stopped teaching and started to write for fun. And then things just kind of happened. And in 2019, I debuted with 3 books in the course of one summer. My publisher put 3 books out in a row. And that was in 2019. And so then we were off and running. Too Good to Be Real, which is the book that brought us together today. Thank you so much. And this is on its way to you. I ordered it. It's coming.
Yay! But for
um,
the rest of you watching this, it's available across all the places where books are sold. If you're in India, you can always get the e-copy, the digital copy, or even the audiobook, or even, you can order it from Book Depository. Yes, continue.
Thank you. So I was, this is going to be a switch from my first series was, they call it mass market paperback. It's the smaller books.
Right,
And
right,
so they were switching me over to the trade paperback size.
right,
So switching me over. And then, so we were working on what we wanted to go with, my editor and and
right.
I was working on my favorite romantic comedy movie is 10 Things I Hate About You. If you've ever heard of it, Heath
I have
Ledger,
watched
it's
it several times. Yeah,
I love that movie. So I was working on kind of a book based like using those themes.
right.
And then I got this idea. I got this idea for, well, why can't we just experience all of those fun things in the book? Like it would feel like so just to have fun and be in a romantic comedy. I would like to live in a romantic comedy. So this idea of a place, a resort that offers the attendees the chance to experience it just kind of popped into my head. And so I emailed my editor and I said, "What do you think of this?" And she was like, "Oh my goodness." She loved it, and we knew that was the idea that I had to run with. And so I wrote most of this book in the pandemic. Like it was right around the time things all started shutting down, and it was really difficult. um, Everyone was home. And so I just let myself have fun. I said, I need an escape from reality. And
Mhm.
that's what this was. It was a
Yeah.
complete escape, just silly and funny and just having a good time and very fluffy, as fluffy as the corgis in the book.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think I would agree. Like, I went into this book, and as I said, I picked up the audiobook. And I was blown away by the narration of the book, the voice actors. They kind of got the voices of the characters that you've written so very well and distinctly. As like, oh my God, I instantly fell in love. And of course, being the movie buff that I am, I instantly related to it. And it's like, wow, where was this book all this time? So so I kind of noticed something that it has so many aspects that people can relate to apart from just being a book about movies. Julia, your main character, she loves watching movies and she loves rom-coms, right? But she's kind of given up for her own life. She's kind of given up on that happy ending. And I don't know about other people who are watching this, but I think I am exactly where Julia is. So I would love to know what your thoughts are on the present. I know this is probably a very broad thing to ask, one person to have an opinion on. But like, do you think that today finding love has become very difficult?
So yes, actually, I was just talking about this with my husband. My daughter went off to college, and I was thinking it's a different world now trying to find someone. Like on one hand, like your opportunities are bigger because of all of the social media and all of the apps and all, but at the other, there's like this kind of there's too many choices.
Too many. Yeah. Yeah.
And then people are just like, why should I settle for one if there's like all of, so I feel like there's this kind of lack of inner and lack of opportunity to connect on a personal level. That's why at the resort, you have to turn your cell phone in. You don't get to have it for the entire week. And that's hard for some people. They're like, wait, what? But it kind of forces this engagement on a level that doesn't happen as much, and it gives people a chance to get to know. So even though it's only a week that they're there, they might get to know somebody a whole lot better in that 1 week than if they work with that person for months or even years, because they're not having those real conversations. So I do think it's harder. But and I can see why you'd say, yeah, like Julia, like she like sees these movies and wishes, like, why can't that happen to me? Like, why can't I just stumble into somebody, bump into them on the street, have a silly conversation, and then where to go from there? And we see it throughout the book where she kind of has these moments that she hopes are going to turn out like they do in rom-coms, and the teenager, and the boy asks her to dance, or she's expecting that the boy is going to ask her to dance. It doesn't. So like she's kind of like feeling like these moments that are supposed to happen a certain way and then don't. Yeah. So romance is all about hope. It's the genre of hope, and guaranteed happy endings. So yeah, so I think you just gotta trust that your one is out there.
So on that note, can you tell us that all right for people to expect that their love lives to be as it's done on the movie? Because most people have, like, there can be a wrong idea, like some people get too much into it and they can have like a completely distorted idea of how it's supposed to look like in real.
Right. And especially, in romance, we get a lot of people complaining that it creates these unrealistic expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
How can you expect there's nobody that actually is like this or does things like this? And I have to say, there are definitely moments in my book based on reality, things that really happened. But I feel like, yes, you can definitely, you have to find them. You can't just keep, if you're holding out waiting for things to be just like in the movies, then you might be waiting a long time.
Right.
You learning to expect, the phrase perfectly imperfect comes up in the story, and this idea that like it's okay to not have everything fit a certain dynamic. That's actually what I'm working on in my current book. Is the main character Kat, who's one of the three friends in Too Good to Be Real, she has this very strong sense of what things should be, what her love life should look like, what her job should look like. Like
somebody like me, yes.
she has these dreams, and anything less than what that dream is not enough. And so she's learning
sometimes you get crushed by those very ideals you hold up for yourself, and nothing is good enough if you don't meet them. So.
Yeah, and I think like figuring out that compromising isn't giving up, it's figuring out what it is in that dream that's truly important.
Right. So let me ask you this. So you mentioned that you met your husband. I'm sure that's a very nice love story of its own. And so how much of your personal love story kind of found its way into this book?
So my personal love story is not in this book. However, my husband and I are so romantic. We actually met as teenagers. We worked at the same shopping mall across the hallway from each other. So it's actually kind of silly. But as far as what's funny is that, so I wrote this book in the pandemic. I
Right.
wrote this book with, like, he's home, he's working from home now. So
Right.
he's around 24/7, constantly around. And so his personality began to seep into this book, into the hero Luke. I've never
Right.
done that before. None of my heroes have ever resembled my husband, but
Right.
but Luke is he's my husband in a lot of ways. My husband is very tall. He's the same height as Luke. He's 6 foot
Right.
4. Very nerdy. His wardrobe is all video game t-shirts. Like it was like blatant stealing of my husband for this character.
Right.
And a lot of it again was, I feel like we were around each other so much, like his kind of snarky, self-deprecating, attitude kind of crept into the story.
Right.
And yeah, so that definitely happened.
Happen. No, I was just about to come and say that, Luke was such an interesting and a different sort of a hero or a love interest than most of the rom-coms that I've read about. So I was just about to ask you that, who was Luke based on, or what? You kind of already answered that.
He's not your average rom-com hero. He's not,
He's
buff and
not. He's not.
handsome, and and so we kind of have that foil in Zach, the actor, who is
Right.
all of those rom-com
Right.
things. I think it was fun to show like the awkwardness, and of course, yes, he's very scrawny and he's embarrassed about not being.
Right.
But the sense that your rom-com hero may not look like just because he doesn't look like the movie
Mhm.
version doesn't mean it's not
Right.
as romantic.
Right. So, when I read the synopsis for the book, I saw the word meet cute, and I was a little skeptical of meet cute. And I'll tell you why. Every time I've read a meet cute book, it has an insta love or an insta friendship trope attached to it, most of the times, 90% of the time. And I just don't like the insta love trope. It just doesn't work for me for some reason. But
No, I
this,
understand, because usually I can't stand it either. I'm not a
right,
big fan of it myself, but
right.
it's a huge element of
Ah,
rom-com.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But when I started listening to this book, I was really skeptical. I went in from a very different sort of a mindset. I went in very critically, I would say. And then, like, somewhere around the time, I can't give out spoilers, but like somewhere around the time when Julia and Luke first meet, and they go to the forest, that region where they go into the hedges to have a walk, and something happens. So I think that was the time when I kind of lost it. I'm like, you know what, let it be. I'm no longer critical with this book. This is one of those comfort read materials. You can't be critical with this. So
That is so wonderful, because it is the exact attitude to have, to kind of like, we're just going on a ride. It's just going to be fun. And I think,
right,
that's such a great thing for you to say, because it is, I mean, of course, there's like, oh, come on, really? But if you accept that this is like, what, you go to a romantic comedy, like I go into it expecting to kind of have, like wild declarations of love
go
and
big, go big, go big
go
or go
big.
home. Yeah,
Exactly. And then that whole moment, like of the thing in the rain, and this
right,
idea of it, and then to actually get to experience it. And
right.
yeah.
Right. So what I was trying to touch upon was that, so I somewhere in the hindsight of the book, I kind of lost that whole, attempt of me being the critical reader or the critical reviewer. And what I realized then when I finished the book was that despite Julia and Luke having a meet cute moment, the story has a really annoyingly charming slow burn feel to it. Like, it doesn't happen. Like, you don't give everything at one go. You make the readers, like hit those marks. You let Luke do his own thing with his sister, Julia do her own things with her best friends, and all the things that's going on around in the resort and the retreat. So I was just coming to that. Like, was it mindful? Like, was it intentional, or like, how did you come around with that sort of an idea? Because, as you said, meet cute often results into insta love.
Yeah. It was definitely a different direction for me, because like in my debut novel, they're like in bed by like the second night they've met each other, maybe even the
Right,
first, I don't know. But I think it doesn't fit the characters' personalities of Luke and Julia. That's just not who they are. And I feel like, so it's organic. So I didn't set out to like, I didn't like go through my plot and be like, all right, they're going to end up here. You know, it just
Right.
kind of more of an organic situation. And when they just, you know, they had this moment where things started to happen.
Right.
And I mean, I did know like they're only there a week. So if it's going to happen, it's got to happen in that week somewhere, which is still pretty fast if you think
Fast,
about
yeah.
it. But again, you've got kind of this forced
Now
proximity
that
element.
you mention it, I did not realize that the book was only a week. Like in my mind, like a lot of time passed. Yeah.
Yeah, because it happens in a week, and then it's like 2 months later that, you
Right.
know,
Right. Right.
but it, yeah, so that, I mean, that was definitely a challenge, and it is a hard sell for some people. So I
Mhm.
love when because I do a little Instagram author chat series
Right.
where about meet cutes. So I ask authors about their own in real life meet cutes
Right.
with their significant others, and it's surprising how many have those kind of, like you said, not like sometimes insta love, like met and like end up together, you know, within a couple weeks. So it happens, you know.
Every single time that has happened with me, I have fallen for the wrong person. It's been very toxic.
So
So
you're gonna so you're cat. You're the character cat in my that's her problem. She's always falling for the wrong guy. And that's the
yeah.
next book. So the next book is Too Wrong to Be Right. And that's her
Wow.
problem. She's always falling for the wrong
I
guy.
love I love all your titles, too good to be real, too wrong to be right.
So, yeah, having fun. So yeah, so she will make a list of
You're right.
what she needs to find to have her Mr. Right. And so
Right. Wow. That sounds like a fun thing. So on that note, I wanted to do like a quick rapid fire round in between. Usually it's put towards the end, but I wanted to do somewhere in between. So paperbacks or hardcovers?
I had paperbacks,
Audiobooks or digital?
audio,
Audio. Julia Roberts or Jennifer Aniston?
Julia Roberts,
Uh, Romantic movies or romantic books?
romantic books. It's hard because
Okay.
that's hard. Like,
Now this one I didn't knew but I already know your answer. Notting Hill or 10 Things I Hate About You.
you know, 10 things. Yes.
Right. Friends with benefits or no strings attached.
That's a hard one. Ooh.
And that's in two sense. One like one as a setting and one like which film of the two.
Yeah, I guess friends with benefits.
Right. Justin Timberlake. An underrated rom-com that you think everybody should watch.
Underrated rom-com. All right, so I just watched, it's called Palm Springs.
Okay.
It's fairly new. I think it's on Hulu. I'm not sure
Okay.
if it's available widely.
We
But
have
it was
Hulu. Yeah.
yeah, so Palm Springs. It
Right.
was really fun. It was a very different, there's like a whole like frozen in time. Like, do you know the movie Groundhog Day? Where
I
he
do.
keeps
I
repeating
do. Yeah.
the same day over and over again. So it's basically a rom-com Groundhog Day. It was really, I
Right.
thought it was really well done. The character development was much more than I expected for, you know, I know
Right.
I'm writing rom-coms and here I am like saying that it surprised me. It was really well done.
Okay. A rom-com that everyone loves but not you.
Love Actually.
Oh well, I mean, I remember I also didn't like that movie a lot, so I agree. Um,
I did take a scene from it when Kurt does the signs, you know?
right, right.
Yeah.
A rom-com book that you love going back to.
Anything by Jennifer Cruzy. So that's like, it's not one book, but she wrote Bet Me
Okay,
and several others. So Jennifer Cruzy.
Jonathan Crusoe. Okay, your go-to auto by authors.
Oh goodness. So let's see here. Laura Kinsale, who hasn't put anything out in a while.
Yeah,
Alexis Saria, who's a
right.
friend, but I still auto buy her. Um, Karen Marie Monning, who writes
Okay,
more normal. There you go.
Ah, perfect. Your ideal rom-com hero slash actor.
uh, let's see here. Tom Welling.
Perfect.
He played Superman in Smallville. I don't know if you remember.
I don't, but now that you mention
Like,
it,
I
I'll
have no
go.
idea who you're talking about. He was, yeah, he's so whatever.
Okay. So, two books that you'd recommend your readers to read who loved your book?
Ooh, that's a good question. So let's see here. So if you enjoy Too Good to Be Real, I would say if you haven't read Austen Land,
I
to
haven't
read
yet.
that. Austen
Okay.
Land is basically a resort for people who love Jane Austen. So that same kind of resort
Ooh,
feeling. And then if you liked kind of like the goofiness and the characters and all of that, then The Tourist Attraction,
The
which is by
Tourist
my
Strike. Yeah.
Sarah
I've read this.
Maas.
Yes. Perfect. Beautiful. And it has like I think spin-off books as well. Like there are more books.
Does, yes.
Yeah. 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 I remember when I was reading your book, it reminded me of two books. One was Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter.
Uh-huh.
And again, that's a book which Lynn describes. I had an opportunity to chat with Lynn as well. So she describes it as a love letter to rom-com. So even that is, so even the chapters are, named after the famous rom-coms, and
Oh, wow.
it opens with every single rom-coms. There's Notting Hill, Bridget Jones' Diaries, 10 Things I Hate About You, and all of those things. And in terms of the setting, it reminded me a lot of Well Met by Jen DeLuca, which is this
Mhm.
book that's
I
set
know,
in,
Jen. Yes.
yeah, which is set in the Renaissance Festival. So it reminded me kind of that as well. So
Yeah,
yes,
because they're playing other people. That makes sense. Yes.
right. So now kind of going back to the book and talking about why, one of the reasons why I picked it up was because the cover just instantly pulled me in. Like, I have a thing that, I judge books by its covers. Off late, I have regretted some of those buys that I've made. But you know how we readers are, we don't learn from some mistakes. So I saw the cover and I was like, I need to read this book. So I wanted to know, what was your first reaction, or what were your initial thoughts when you first saw the cover of your gorgeous book? And if you can hold up the cover once again for the reader, for the
Sure.
viewers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just look, just let that sink in. Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful.
So when they first sent me over the initial sketches of the idea, it was a couple different things. They, well, I'm like, it almost looked like a religious painting. I was like, because they had like a stained glass window, and the seagulls were more like just those like little lines,
Oh my God.
So,
I
so
totally want to see that first draft now.
maybe I will share it with you. I don't know. But what happened was there's like 2 or 3 drawings, and I told them the things I liked from each, and then they combined them, and that's how we ended up with this.
Right.
And the only thing I told them, I said, I want 2 things. I want a corgi on the cover, and I want my seagull stealing the bikini. I
Right.
was very specific. I wanted those 2 things, and they got them for me. And it's funny because I actually just had the conversation about the next cover this past week. And we're kind of talking about colors and talking about characteristics, and there are quirky animals in the next book. So I told them I have to have a hedgehog and a cockatoo.
Wow. I can already see, how these both books would look like when they stand next to one another on the shelf. So absolutely.
Yeah.
So I kind of, wanted to talk a little about one of the aspects of on the book, on the cover of the book, that's corgi. And of late, you might have noticed that there are lots of books with dogs on their cover, or just dogs in the stories, and specifically in rom-coms. And one of the favorite ones that I can think of is the Happy Ever After playlist by Jimmy Abbey. It's an
Mhm.
amazing book, and so was this one. So I wanted to know that, to what extent do you think a dog, plays a good role in a rom-com? Because this one fairly had lots of important aspects to do.
So I think animals
And
always.
can we call him a Cupid?
Oh right, yes, the yes, the seagull especially. I know.
Yeah, seagulls. Yeah.
Clyde the seagull. I feel like animals add this fun element to rom-coms because they do unexpected things. They bring people together to
Right.
bond over situations. I know I just did a panel of authors who include animals in their stories, and
Wow.
you've
Yeah.
got like the whole like 101 Dalmatians where the leashes get tangled and the dogs. So like they kind of open doors and everyone loves pets. You may not be a dog person, maybe you're a cat person, but like there's some you can tap into that emotional connection.
For some reason, I have not read books with cats.
That's what came up. So that's hilarious that you say that because in the panel, one of the authors, she was the only one that had a cat instead of a dog. And she was like, I'm here to state the case for cats. And that her book is coming out next spring. It's Maisie Eddings, and her book is A Brush with Love, and it's the
Okay.
one about
I have seen that cover, the blue cover with
the
pink.
toothbrush. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
super.
it's gorgeous. Yeah,
I think you would like it, but apparently there is a cat in the book named
I'm not a
Big
cat
Booty.
person. Yeah.
Not a well, the hero isn't a cat person either, so maybe you can relate. So yeah, but there is definitely more dogs than cats in rom-coms, and that's an
Yeah.
interesting. Why is that?
I think that's just how the nature of dogs are. Like they're just so
Dogs
unconditional.
are
Yeah.
funnier
Versus
and more lovable.
yeah,
Cats are
versus I
jerks.
feel cats just have so much of personality going on for themselves. I feel that they're like humans, but like in the bodies of cats.
Yes.
So people want to stay away from them for some reason. So yeah. So on that note, I also wanted to ask, like, what was your most favorite part to write in this whole, in the whole story?
Oh my goodness. So honestly, the meet cute was a lot of fun to write because
Right.
this was when I was still figuring out the book because
Hmm.
um before you get an author from the publisher, you have to put together a couple of chapters for them to look at.
Right, right, right.
And so that was part of the proposal to get this book published was that meet cute, and that I think was what really sold it. But I feel like I just really had fun, and it was something that was so like organic and spontaneous. I just started
Right.
writing it. I had no idea where it was going. I put them on the beach, and then like the seagull just shows up. Like it was out of nowhere. Like he like just I mean, come on. He gets crapped on and he's like, oh my God, I can't touch this. And he's the last thing this guy wants
I,
to do.
I, I, I never want to have that kind of an experience, even if it ensures that I'll have like the meet cute. I'll never.
That's hilarious. You're like, okay, would you do this if it equals this? And you're like, no, absolutely not.
Like, I mean, would you want to do it?
Right. So, but that's like the last thing he wants to do is have to take off his shirt in front of someone, especially some woman that he kind of finds attractive. But he's like, ah. So that was a lot of fun for me to write because I really felt like we saw such a snapshot of their personalities, like
Right.
right from the go.
Right.
So it was fun.
Right. One of the final things that I wanted to kind of touch on before we move on to your next book and what's upcoming was that there were so many things about this book and about the side characters or the minor characters which felt so important, necessary, and in a way very complete and wholesome, which isn't really characteristic of rom-coms. Like usually, the side characters are just there to help the main plot move forward, which it kind of did in your story as well. But the friendship that was there with for Julia was very reminiscent of the Sex and the City. I think you've read enough reviews where it's been described like that. And of course, on the other side, there was the brother and sister bond, and how they kind of went through with that. So could you speak a little on both these issues and how you went about with that?
I think for me, it is just kind of integral to my own writing. Like every writer has things that are important to them, and friendships, strong friendships have always been something you're going to find in any of my books. You're going to
Right.
find those strong bonds. And so this was no different. And maybe that kind of broke tradition that, like you said, rom-coms usually it's so much more about
Right.
the M's than
Yeah.
the characters. And for me, it like that journey, like the friends are along for the journey, and I don't like it when a character is thrown in just for the plot. Like they all have their own lives too.
Absolutely. So on that note, I think you've already mentioned a lot about your upcoming book, but let me also officially ask you that, what's that one thing that, setting it apart from this one, but what also that one thing that is similar to this one?
So obviously the similarity is Kat, who is the one of the
Right.
girls
It's
in
set
the
in the
friend.
same world. So
It's
that
set in the
let
same world. No
so
rom
so
com.
so are we seeing Julia and Luke again?
Yes, we
Yay!
definitely get to see Luke and
Yeah.
Julia. We get to see Andy and Kurt. It
Wow.
is set in Chicago,
Yeah.
and the meet cute in this one happens in a funeral home over a dead body.
Okay. Okay. That
We have
that
another.
reminds me. It reminds me for sure that you might have watched when you were young. I mean, when you were of the right age. I mean, I watched it recently. It's called 6 Feet Under, the show
Oh, I
on.
haven't watched it, but I've heard of it. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like a family who runs a funeral home, and then all
that's a
their
great suggestion. I'm gonna start watching it. Thank you.
yeah, and it's a very like very early show. Like it ran from 2001 to 2005. So like
I'm
I was
gonna check
born in
it
2000. So this
out.
so there's so I watched it only like pandemic brought me to it, but it was so much fun. Like every single show, every single episode begins with somebody dying, somebody unrelated dies, and these are real people, and like these are real accounts that they've used, and then they have like the story going in around them. So there's this one couple who literally falls in love over a dead body.
Oh my gosh, I am so going to watch this series just because that I just to soak it up because it's been interesting, kind of the whole what's considered kind of grim and morbid, but yet in
Yeah.
a romance. So,
Yeah, and I'm not like I can't recall the name, but there's this another book. It's by Sean David Hutchinson. He's written lots of these books like We Are the Ants. He's an LGBTQIA writer. So he has this one of this book which is called I think The Dead and Other Things. Like one of his books, you'll just see it by the title and the cover. So that is also about like a funeral happening and then two boys who meet around the funeral or something and then they fall in love. So that's another book that you should definitely.
I stumbled into a trope I didn't even realize was a trope.
Yeah, you definitely need a nuance to get like this trope. I would say that.
Yeah.
Right. So it was so much fun talking with you. It was just as much fun as the book itself was. So I'm very happy.
It was delightful. Yeah, I really appreciate you reaching out. I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And
Right.
it sounds like yeah, all like you've had some great authors on, so I'm gonna go watch some of your other episodes.
Yay! Thank you so much. Let me just stop the recording now.